running a little bit late. It feels like ages since I've had the camera out. Righty, so obviously I'm stopping for a quick charge. So today we're going to go to Rolls Royce, their Learning and Development Centre, and we're going to have a tour. I've been wanting to plan what I say in my videos a little bit better. Now obviously today that's not going to work because I don't really know what the day is about. I think we're going to be looking at some aerospace stuff, probably more than the car side of things, but honestly, I don't know. Do need sustenance though. 35 miles it's put in, and that was the fastest toilet and coffee stop that I could possibly have done. So there you go, that is the minimum amount you're going to get from a supercharger. I wasn't even that empty, I was on about 45%, so it didn't even charge that quickly. What is it charging now? 56 kilowatts is all I'm getting at the moment. Forgot to unplug it. Electric motorbike, awesome. It's a hell of a parking job, isn't it? Audi e-tron. This is the one that Soph's thinking about, although I'm still trying to convince her that supercharger access is worth it. Oh, it does look nice. How funny, they're just talking about the rental value for this, and that's one of the things that gets Soph, is the rental value is very, very low as a sort of monthly payment. I think she got quoted £600 a month, and I think that was for 15,000 miles, so outrageous really. You can see why she's keen. EVs and sort of EVs are kind of everywhere today. Well, it has now become clear that today is primarily focused on the wonder that is jet engines, which kind of makes sense because this site is mostly Rolls Royce and their jet engine engineering, design and manufacture and stuff like that. But it does leave me with a bit of a problem because I was not actually really planning on talking a huge amount about jet engines. Although of course hybrid jet engines are coming, that is going to be a thing. And a hybrid jet engine it's actually kind of pretty simple really, and in some ways obviously not that simple, but fundamentally you need an electric motor and a jet engine anyway to start the thing up, because until the front compressor is actually spinning there's no airflow into the engine, so you've got no oxygen with which to combust your fuel efficiently and shoot the exhaust out the back, which is what then spins the compressor at the front. Fan at the back, through an axle to the front, which then spins a much larger compressor fan there, and then you often have sort of other compressor fans within the engine to sort of get the exact pressures that are required. So what you do with a hybrid electric engine is, rather than having a small weedy sort of starter motor to spin the thing up, what you actually have is a reasonably powerful electric motor and hopefully some big batteries. But what that enables you to do is then spin the compressor without requiring the actual engine to be burning fuel at that point, because most of the thrust that comes from an aircraft jet engine, you know, sort of commercial jet engines you see with those pods that hang under the wings, almost all the thrust from that is from the enormous compressor fan rather than actual thrust that comes out the back. I think hybrid trains, it's going to make a lot of sense, because if you think about it, it means you can really cut down on the pollution and the noise pollution close to airports, which is where it does the most damage both to people's health and to their well-being. So there's definitely the potential in hybrid electric plane engines to really make a dent on the air travel CO2 emissions, because that is one of those things that people don't want to give up going on foreign holidays. I mean, it's fine when the weather's like this in the UK, but it often isn't. So people do like to get out. Yeah, abroad is a much safer bet, generally speaking. Hence, we need air travel. I look forward to the day when planes are 100% electric. I think it was Elon Musk that said that in order to do a transatlantic flight in a sort of jetliner, you'd need about 70% of the way to the vehicle to be batteries. I think it was him that said that. Probably need some pretty cool engineering as well to make that fly, almost said. It is a doable challenge, and 70% sounds like a lot, but it's actually not that bad, especially if you can make some of the structural elements out of battery modules or their casings. There are other advantages, of course, as well, because once you've got to electric propulsion, I mean, we found this with cars. The thing about an electric car is it can generate enormous amounts of power. It's always the range that's the problem, not the acceleration. You're not thinking to yourself, God, I wish this car had another 100 horsepower, because quite frankly, it's probably already got another 100 horsepower more than the car you had before you got an electric vehicle. And that's if you're getting something like a e-niro. And it's the same principle with planes. You've got access to a huge amount of power that you can use very quickly, provided you're doing something relatively efficient with it. So for example, vertical takeoff and landings, they're possible, and possible relatively efficiently in terms of the overall flight if you've got an electric motor. The thing that stops a jetliner from taking off and landing vertically is principally they'd have to pivot the engines, which would be a huge amount of plumbing and mechanics and worry as to will it work. And the other massive problem with it is it actually doesn't generate enough thrust. You can't stand it on its end and it can stay there because it just doesn't have the actual thrust to weight required for vertical performance. The first person to market with a plane that cuts 10% of the fuel cost off is going to just absolutely dominate, because fuel is a massive part of the cost of running a plane and getting it from one continent to the next. It's mainly fuel. The pilots are cheap, the food is cheap, even their landing fees are relatively cheap, but the fuel is expensive. Wow, that is some plumbing job. It's a wonder these things are as reliable as they are. You know what? This thing looks tiny. That seems quite a bit smaller than the e-niro, which is awesome, because hopefully it means my mum can get one of those next year, because I'm sure that's what she really wants. Actually, what she really wants is a car that will fit in her garage. And you know what, just between me and you, I think I prefer the look of that to the e-niro. I wonder if they've got slightly better availability. I mean, it couldn't be any worse, right? I'm here with Richard, who owns this fantastic Kona. Yep. I keep getting the Kona and the e-niro. They're quite similar in a lot of ways, and I keep getting them muddled up.
I think it's the Kia name as well. Kia.
Yes.
Kona.
Yeah. So it's the Kia e-niro and the Hyundai Kona. Right.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about the problem with the. I was just telling my subscribers the problem with the e-niro is it's like 12-14 months if you want to get one.
Yeah.
And you just told me you can't even order these anymore.
It's even worse with this one. They've taken it off the ordering system, online system.
Oh no.
You can still go on the website and go on the waiting list, but no, you can't actually place an order.
How ridiculous. It's as I understand it from Kia, at any rate, the problem is batteries.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
But I think the Model 3 is probably going to change it, because that's not going to be restricted supply, is it? So.
No, well, because they've built their own battery factory, which
exactly.
Turns out that was the sensible thing to do. I was just thinking, this looks really nice size, actually.
It is, yeah.
It's a bit smaller than the...
It is smaller, yeah. There's not quite as much room as the e-niro. Definitely in the back. If I have the seat right back, it is pretty cramped if I just sit in the back.
That's good for my mum though. She doesn't really need back seat. What she needs is something that will definitely fit in her garage in Hastings.
Yeah.
And this looks like it would do that. So now the only slight problem is she can't order one.
exactly.
She'd be looking for a new car next spring, so...
Well, by then I think next year they're hoping to increase the production and get the battery supply sorted out. So
they're hoping to.
I think they'll have to, because the VWID is going to be available then, isn't it? And
well, is it going to be available, or is it going to be 12 months? Oh, whoops, we're not taking orders anymore.
Yes.
You know, I mean, that seems to be the core problem, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You can't. They're making them, and this and the e-niro are fantastic cars. You look at the specs; they tick so many boxes for people, but if you can't buy them, then what's the point?
No, it just seems to be Tesla the only ones going flat out to deliver as many as they possibly can. Maybe it's because they're legacy car makers and they're still selling the other cars, you don't know, do you? But
I think it's because they don't make their own batteries.
Yeah.
Because most car manufacturers are not used to actually manufacturing their own parts. They just go to market and they buy them from...
And expect to be able to do that.
OEMs, exactly. And
they're not used to not being able to get what they order things when they want them.
Yeah, and when it comes to electric car batteries, from what I gather, they're like hen's teeth these days.
Yeah.
You know. So how long have you had it?
2.5 months now. And I've never actually public charged. The range really is, it can do the 280 miles.
Wow.
So I've only ever had to park at home or when I've visited family.
Hyundai were very good with the Ioniq in terms of, you know, they said it would do 130 miles, and it pretty much would do 130 miles, and it went to like 130, which is still pretty good.
People when it gets a bit old, which is the way to do it, isn't it? It's nice.
Yeah.
If it underperforms, then it could get a bad reputation.
Yeah.
Put people off. But
well, I feel it's a bit similar with this sort of when people talk about the capacity of the battery, and they talk about the absolute capacity with Tesla.
Yeah.
You know, my 85 never actually delivered 85 kilowatt hours. I think the max it ever did was something like 72. So really, it should be a 72 kilowatt hour.
Yeah, they need a standard now because different manufacturers. I think this one, 64 genuine usable.
Yeah, that's 64 actual.
Probably a bit bigger, 68, 69, something like that.
It's probably more like 75, I would have thought.
Possibly for the range you get.
They usually put quite a bit of buffer in there so that the batteries last.
Yeah.
Because my electric mower batteries, I've got two electric mower batteries, and one of them clonked out the other day, and they're about 5-6 years old.
Yeah.
But of course, that's batteries without any real thermal management of any sort, without any real protection from over discharge or overcharging. You know, it goes up until it's full and empty till it's empty.
Yeah, but that's where Nissan have fallen down, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they've always tried to sort of cut corners in order to make their cars financially viable.
Profitable, which is fair enough, I guess.
Yeah, which is why if you want a Nissan Leaf, you can go to a dealer and get one from inventory today. I might just have a quick look in there.
Certainly, yeah.
That's the only problem I have with my Tesla, is I've had it now for 5 years, and it's getting in the way of me owning other electric vehicles.
Like it so much.
I'd love to have a Kona EV. What's that?
We have a convoy!
Oh, a convoy. Sounds like it's time to go. Well, nice to meet you.
You too as well, yeah.
Cheers.
See you.
Thank you. Bye. There's a Tesla convoy. We're going somewhere, but I don't know where. So I think this is just a kind of follow everyone else sort of thing. You'd think, what with Rolls Royces being big cars and all, that the spaces would be a bit bigger. What an awesome place. I love the engineering that goes on at like aerospace companies in general, actually. I should have done engineering at school. Definitely. I probably wasn't anything like good enough at maths, to be quite honest. But it's just extremely cool. Hang on, let me put this down here. Let's see if this works. Might do. Is it gonna... That is sweet. I like that. That is cool. So it's gonna just basically sort of follow me, and I won't have to sort of do anything or think about anything except what to say, which is what I've completely forgotten about. This little Rolls Royce thingy is not really open to the public. Well, it's not open to the public. It's by invite only, run by the Heritage Centre. And if you're into the history of aircraft and jet engines, then I can't recommend it enough. It's fascinating, and the guide was extremely knowledgeable, but I can't parrot back most of the facts and stuff that I got from that. But the one overriding thing that really came home to me is how incredibly finely balanced this sort of engineering challenge is. I think probably all engineering, actually, now that I think about it, is probably quite well balanced. Right, I'm going to head off now and get my car charged up, and well, I can hear the fans going like crazy, so that's what you get for sitting out in the sun all day. Is it still got me? No, it's lost tracking. And yes, it is supercharging time again. Always rather have 2 short supercharging stops than 1 long one, because then I get twice as much coffee. That's going to be the end of today's videoing, I'm pretty sure. It was nice bumping into the guy with the Hyundai. That was awesome. The Kona. That did not expect to find that there. Bit disappointed to hear that they are just as totally unable to meet demand as the other one, the Kia e-niro. You'd almost wonder what the point is. You know, they go to the trouble of making great EVs that people love and want to buy, but they can't get hold of the batteries. So frustrating. Must be quite frustrating for their shareholders as well, I would imagine. Supper taken care of. I hope I sleep tonight. I've actually had quite a lot of caffeine, so I cut it down so much, and you know, it's when you get out of the house and you go see people, that's when you suddenly just pile in the coffee and don't notice. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, remember to like it, share it, subscribe if you haven't already, and follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you don't already. And I will see you in the next episode of my vlog. Bye. I'm not sure about this camera. Here we go. I can select you like that,
okay,
and now it will keep centered on you no matter what. So as I move this, it'll keep finding your face.
And it's a gimbal, it's not doing electronically, It actually does move the camera.
Actually, that was a good idea. I should have just done that right from the beginning. It's a learning process.